You'd be living in a studio apartment eating ramen within a month, my husband Cole said, swirling his bourbon like he was discussing a bad investment. I pulled off my wedding ring, the 4-carat diamond he'd chosen without asking what I wanted, and set it on our Italian marble kitchen island. By sunrise, his business partner was blowing up his phone, his father was threatening to fly in from Boston, and somehow, the IRS had questions about accounts Cole thought nobody knew existed. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I'm standing in our kitchen that's been featured in Architectural Digest, watching Cole pour his third Blantons of the night. It's 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, which means he's already made his evening calls to investors in London and is now in what I call his Master of the Universe phase of intoxication. He's been going on for 20 minutes about my little spending problem. This week it's because I bought a $400 dress without asking him first. Never mind that he just dropped $80,000 on a vintage Porsche he'll drive twice. You'd be living in a studio apartment eating ramen within a month, he says, not even looking at me. He's scrolling through something on his phone, probably checking property values or texting Dylan, his business partner who treats our home like his personal crash pad. I've heard variations of this speech before. Usually, I nod, apologize, promise to be more careful with his money. That's what the past 6 years of marriage have trained me to do. But tonight is different. Tonight, I've just come from a meeting with someone Cole has never bothered to learn the name of, even though she's worked in his office for 12 years. And tonight, I know things Cole doesn't think I'm smart enough to understand. I pull off my wedding ring. The 4-carat diamond he chose without asking what I wanted, set in platinum because it held value better. The band makes a small clicking sound when it hits the marble, the Italian Calacatta marble he special ordered, the one that cost more than most people's cars. What are you doing? He finally looks up from his phone. I line up my keys next to the ring. House key. His and hers matching Range Rovers. I've always hated mine, too big, too showy. The key to his office that he gave me so I could drop by with lunch like a good corporate wife. Testing your hypothesis, I say. My voice is calm. That's what surprises him most, I think. 6 years of me getting emotional when he dismisses me, apologizing when he critiques me, and now I sound like I'm discussing the weather. Tiana, this is ridiculous. He sets down his bourbon, deciding this is another one of my emotional episodes that he'll have to manage. We'll talk about this when you're being rational. I'm being perfectly rational, I say, already walking toward the door. I have one bag, a small Longchamp tote, nothing that would make him suspicious. Everything else I need is already somewhere else. Somewhere he's never thought to look. You're not actually leaving. He laughs. Actually laughs. Over a comment about spending? I pause at the door, just long enough to see his face shift from amusement to confusion to the beginning of something that might be concern. No, Cole. I'm leaving because you've always believed I needed you more than you needed me. Let's find out if you're right. The door closes behind me with a soft click. No slamming, no drama. Just, exit. I'm in the Uber, paid cash, not the joint credit card, when my phone starts buzzing. Cole's name. I silence it. Then it's Dylan calling, his business partner, his best friend since college, the man who's co-signed on deals worth $50 million. By the time I'm checking into the Hotel Van Zant using my maiden name, Finch, the name I haven't used in 6 years, my phone has 17 missed calls. But here's what Cole doesn't know yet. While he's been calling me, his day tomorrow is about to get very interesting. His 9 a.m. meeting with Silver Lake Properties. They just received an anonymous package. His business account at Wells Fargo. Someone requested a full audit of transactions over $10,000 in the past 3 years. And his father, the legendary Simon Holloway who built Holloway Development from the ground up? He's about to get a phone call from an attorney he's never heard of, asking very specific questions about company structures and tax shelters. I order room service, a burger that costs $34, which Cole would say is fiscally irresponsible, and I eat every bite. My phone buzzes again. This time it's a text from a number I don't have saved. It's starting. Are you ready? I type back, I've been ready for almost 2 years. Cole said I couldn't survive a month without him. I'm going to enjoy proving him wrong. The Hotel Van Zant sits in the Rainy Street district, far enough from our Tarrytown neighborhood that I won't run into anyone from Cole's world. It's the kind of place where musicians stay, where startup founders celebrate their first funding rounds. My room overlooks Lady Bird Lake. From here, I can see the lights of downtown, can almost make out the Holloway development sign on the building where Cole's corner office takes up prime real estate on the 32nd floor. He's probably still there now, calling everyone he knows, trying to understand what just happened. What he doesn't understand is that I've been planning this for almost 2 years. Not 6 years of marriage. I wasn't smart enough at the beginning to see what I'd walked into. But 23 months ago, something changed. The room service cart sits empty by the door. I pull out my laptop, not the MacBook Air Cole bought me for shopping and Pinterest, but the ThinkPad I bought myself 18 months ago with cash from a source he doesn't know exists. I log into accounts using passwords Cole has never seen. Email addresses that end in at ProtonMail instead of at Gmail. Cloud storage that isn't linked to any Apple ID he has access to. The first folder I open is labeled Property Records, Travis County. Inside are 214 documents, each one a piece of a puzzle Cole thinks he's the only one who can see. But here's what Cole never bothered to learn about me. Before I met him at that charity gala 6 years ago, before I became Mrs. Holloway who lunches and volunteers and smiles for photos, I was Tiana Finch who graduated summa cum laude from UT Austin with a degree in economics. He knows I went to UT. He tells people at parties, usually right before adding, but she never really used it, went straight into event planning instead. He makes it sound like I was planning birthday parties, not managing corporate events for Dell and Indeed and a dozen other tech companies that were paying me $90,000 a year. What he doesn't know is that I kept working for the first year of our marriage. Remote consulting, small projects, all deposited into an account I opened the week before our wedding. An account at a credit union in Round Rock that Cole has never heard of. That first year, I made $47,000. By year 2, when Cole started making comments about me not understanding business, I'd made $63,000. Year 3, the year he forgot my birthday entirely, I made $81,000. Year 4, I stopped consulting and started investing. By the end of that year, my separate account had $340,000. Last year, I crossed $1 million. My phone is on Do Not Disturb, but I can see the notifications piling up. Cole, 23 missed calls Dylan, 8 missed calls Cole. Where are you Cole? This isn't funny. That last one almost makes me laugh. I'm scaring him. 6 years of him telling me I'm too sensitive, too emotional, too dependent, and now I'm scaring him. At 11:47 p.m., a new text comes through from a number I don't recognize. This is Simon Holloway. Cole gave me your number. Whatever is going on between you two, we can work it out. My son loves you. Call me when you're ready to be reasonable. Simon Holloway. Cole's father. The man who told Cole at our rehearsal dinner, while I was standing right there, pretty girl. Good breeding. She'll give you beautiful children and won't ask too many questions. I delete Simon's message and open a new text to the number I messaged earlier, package delivered to Silver Lake. The response comes immediately, delivered at 7 p.m. Confirmed signed receipt. Wells Fargo audit. Request submitted this morning. Expedited review approved. And the other thing? CPA receives everything tomorrow at 9 a.m. Anonymous, untraceable, exactly as you specified. I lean back against the hotel headboard, my heart pounding but my hands steady. Cole thinks I'm having some kind of breakdown. That I'll cool off, realize I've made a mistake, come home apologetic and ready to forget his comments. What he doesn't know is that while he's been spending the last 2 years telling people I don't understand business, I've been building my own. While he's been at the office making deals, I've been documenting every conversation, every transaction, every corner he's cut. While preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. While he's been sleeping soundly, confident in his empire, I've been awake. Planning. Preparing. Waiting. My phone buzzes one more time. Another unknown number, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Franklin Barbecue. Come alone. We have a lot to discuss. Agatha. She's ready. I need to tell you how I got here. How a woman who graduated top of her class, who built her own career, who prided herself on being nobody's fool, ended up married to a man who thought she was decorative. It was 23 months ago. March 15th. Our 4th anniversary. I woke up at 6:30 like always, in our bed that Cole had already left. He'd been sleeping in his home office more, said my tossing and turning disrupted his sleep. The coffee maker was programmed, which was nice except I'd programmed it myself the night before. I'd made reservations at Uchi for 7 p.m. Our first date had been at Uchi, back when Cole still pretended to care about things like first dates and romance. I'd requested the omakase experience, the one where the chef chooses every course. $350 per person. Cole's favorite way to show off. At breakfast, I waited for him to mention it. The anniversary. He came down at 7:45 in his Tom Ford suit, already on the phone with someone about lumber costs for the new East Side development. Coffee's ready, I said. He nodded, mouthed, thank you, and kept talking. Something about supply chain issues and contractor delays. I tried again at lunch. I'd driven to his office, the Holloway development tower downtown, all glass and steel and his father's legacy. Brought him Thai food from Sway, his favorite pad see ew with extra crispy pork. His assistant Agatha buzzed me in. She's worked there for 12 years, this efficient woman in her 50s who runs Cole's professional life with the precision of a Swiss watch. She smiled when she saw me, but there was something sad in it. He's on a call, she said. The Sydney investors. Might be another hour. I left the food with her. Drove home. Told myself he'd remember at dinner. At 6 p.m., I was dressed. The burgundy Reformation dress I'd bought specifically for tonight, the one that Cole would probably comment on later, too expensive, too trendy, not classic enough for a Holloway wife. At 6:30, I called him. Voicemail. At 7, I called Agatha. Is he still there? Oh, honey. That's what she called me sometimes, when Cole wasn't around. Honey. Like I was someone to be pitied. He left around 5. Said he had a meeting. I drove to Uchi anyway. Sat at the bar alone. The hostess recognized me, gave me a sympathetic look that made me want to disappear. I ordered sake and told her my husband was running late, knowing even as I said it that he wasn't coming. At 9 p.m., I drove home. The house was dark. His car wasn't in the garage. That's when I decided to look for our insurance documents. I'd been thinking about updating our coverage. We'd bought some art last year, a piece Cole's decorator insisted would appreciate in value. I needed to add it to the policy. Cole's home office was off-limits usually. His sanctuary, he called it. But he wasn't home, and I was his wife, and surely I had the right to find our insurance paperwork. The filing cabinet wasn't locked. That's how little he worried about me finding anything. I was looking for the folder labeled Insurance, when I found the one labeled Personal, Voice Memos. Inside was a flash drive. Unlabeled. I shouldn't have plugged it into his computer. I should have put it back, found the insurance papers, gone to bed. But I was 4 years married, sitting alone in my husband's office on our anniversary that he'd forgotten, and I was tired of being good. The drive had maybe 20 audio files. All labeled with dates. I clicked on the most recent one. March 10th. 5 days ago. Cole's voice filled the room. The thing about Tiana is she's perfect for what I needed at the time. Another voice. Dylan. His business partner, his best friend, the man who'd been best man at our wedding. What do you mean, needed? I was 32, Dad was pushing me to settle down, said investors trust married men more. Said I needed someone who looked the part but wouldn't interfere with business. Laughter. Dylan's laugh. And Tiana fit the bill? Perfectly. Pretty enough to photograph well, smart enough to hold a conversation at dinners, but not so smart that she asks complicated questions. She has no idea how any of the deals actually work. Yesterday she asked if escrow was a type of lawyer. More laughter. My face was burning, but I kept listening. Plus her family's normal. Middle-class professor parents, nothing flashy. Makes me look more self-made, you know? Dad loves that story, kid from money marries girl from humble background, true love, all that bullshit. Does she know about the prenup clauses? The new ones we added last month? God, no. She signed them thinking they were insurance updates. Didn't even read them. If she ever leaves, she gets nothing. Well, whatever was in her name to start with, which was basically her 10-year-old Honda. I'd signed something last month. Cole had brought papers to breakfast, said they were updated life insurance policies. Needed my signature before he left for a meeting. I'd signed them. While eating yogurt. Without reading them. I sat in his leather chair, his $3,000 Herman Miller chair that was ergonomically essential, and played file after file. 3 years of recordings. Cole talking to Dylan, to his father Simon, to his lawyer, to his therapist. Discussing me like I was a stock option. An asset. A thing he'd acquired for strategic purposes. One file from 2 years ago, she wanted to keep consulting after we got married. I told her it looked bad, like I couldn't provide. She stopped within 6 months. Another from last year, she asked to see our tax returns. I told her they were too complicated, she'd just get confused. She dropped it. The most recent one, from March 8th, I'm thinking 4 more years, max. By then we'll have a kid or 2, she'll be locked in. Dad says that's when you renegotiate or trade up. Elena did it, got rid of wife number 1 right at the 8-year mark. Elena. Cole's mother. Who'd been replaced by Simon's second wife when Cole was 12. I was a temporary installation. A lease, not a purchase. And worse, I'd made it easy for him. I copied every file to my phone. Every single one. Then I put the drive back exactly where I'd found it, closed the cabinet, and walked out of that office. Cole came home at 11:30 that night, smelling like scotch and steak. He'd been at Fleming's with Dylan and some investors. Hey, babe, he said, loosening his tie. Sorry I'm late. The Sydney deal is heating up. I was sitting on the couch in the dark. Tiana? You okay? Do you know what today is? I asked. He froze. I watched the calculation happen on his face. Oh, God. Honey, I'm so sorry. The anniversary. I completely forgot. I stood up. Walked past him. Went upstairs to our bedroom. I'll make it up to you, he called after me. This weekend. Wherever you want to go. I didn't answer. I laid in bed that night, listening to him brush his teeth, settle into his office, probably record another memo about what an understanding wife I was. And I started planning. The morning after I found those recordings, I woke up with absolute clarity. Cole was already gone, 6 a.m. conference call with the Sydney team, according to the note he'd left on the kitchen counter, along with a credit card and a message, buy yourself something nice. I'm really sorry about yesterday. Like jewelry could erase what I'd heard. Like a handbag could make me forget that my entire marriage was a strategic acquisition. I made coffee and sat at our kitchen island, the same spot where, 23 months later, I'd eventually take off my ring. But that morning, I was still wearing it. Still playing the part. I just knew I needed to stop playing blind. I showed up at Cole's office at 9 a.m. with pastries from a local bakery. The kind of thing the good wife does, surprising her husband with treats after he forgot their anniversary. The security guard waved me through. I'd been there dozens of times for lunch deliveries, for charity event planning meetings, for all the little wifely duties that kept me orbiting Cole's professional world without ever really entering it. Agatha Karp was at her desk outside Cole's corner office. 54 years old, silver hair always in a neat bun, glasses on a chain around her neck. She'd worked for Simon Holloway first, back when the company was smaller, before Cole took over the Austin operations. "He's not in yet," she said, glancing at the pastry box. "Meeting ran long. Probably won't be back until 11. "Actually," I said, and something in my voice made her look up sharply, "I came to talk to you." We went to the break room. It was empty, 9 a.m., most people were at their desks, pretending to be busy. I set down the pastries and pulled out my phone. "I need to play you something," I said. "And then I need to know if I'm crazy." I played her one file. Just one. Cole's voice, "Agatha's been with the company forever. Loyal as a dog. Doesn't ask questions, doesn't cause problems. Exactly the kind of employee Dad taught me to value, invisible until you need them." Agatha's face didn't change much. Just a slight tightening around her mouth. "There are more," I said. "A lot more. About me, mostly. About how I'm temporary." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, locked the break room door, and sat back down. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Since last night." "And what are you planning to do about it?" That was the moment I realized Agatha already knew. Of course she knew. She scheduled his meetings, filed his expenses, probably had access to more of Cole's life than I did. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "I just know I can't keep pretending I don't see it." Agatha pulled off her glasses, cleaned them with the edge of her cardigan. "I worked for Simon Holloway for 18 years before Cole took over Austin operations. Do you know how many wives I've watched come through that family?" I shook my head. 4. Simon's been married 3 times, Elena, then Janet, now Moira. And Cole's first fiancée, before you. Bella Lockhart. They were engaged for 8 months. Cole was engaged before? He'd never mentioned a previous engagement. Simon broke it off. Said Bella was too ambitious, asked too many questions about the business. Wanted to be a partner, not a wife. Simon told Cole to find someone more manageable. The word hung in the air between us. 6 months later, Cole met you at that charity gala. I remember because he called Simon the next day, said he'd found the perfect candidate. Agatha's voice was flat, professional, but I could hear the disgust underneath. "Why are you telling me this?" She leaned forward. "Because I've been invisible in this company for 12 years. I've typed memos I wished I could burn. I've scheduled meetings I knew were about destroying someone's career or marriage or life. And I've kept my mouth shut because I have a daughter in college and a mortgage and no other skills that would pay this well." She pulled a business card from her wallet. Her personal card, not the company one. On the back, she'd written a phone number in pen. "But I'm 54 years old, and my daughter graduates in May. And I'm tired of watching men like Simon and Cole treat people like chess pieces." "What's this number?" I asked. "Mine. Personal cell. Not the company phone they monitor." She paused. "I've been here 12 years, Tiana. I've seen every contract, every deal, every document that crosses Cole's desk. And Simon's, before him. You've kept copies." It wasn't a question. I could see it in her face. "Not officially. But I have an excellent memory. And I've always been very thorough about backing up files. For disaster recovery purposes, you understand." She stood, unlocked the door, then turned back. Simon Holloway used to say, "The help is only invisible if you're too stupid to see them." He meant it as advice, ignore the little people, they don't matter. But he was wrong about one thing. "What's that?" Invisible doesn't mean powerless. It just means we see things you don't think we see. She picked up a croissant from the box, took a delicate bite. These are delicious. Cole hates pastries like this. Says they're too trendy. I know. Good. She smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in 4 years. Call me when you're ready. I've been preparing for this conversation longer than you think. After she left, I sat in that break room for another 10 minutes, holding her card. I'd come looking for information. Maybe sympathy. What I'd found was an ally who'd been waiting for someone to finally ask the right questions. That night, I called the number on Agatha's card. She answered on the second ring. I was wondering if you'd call tonight or wait until morning. Tonight, I said. I need to know what I'm dealing with. Everything. You're dealing with everything. Simon and Cole have been building a very specific type of empire, and it's not just about commercial real estate. What do you mean? Meet me tomorrow. 2 p.m. Franklin Barbecue, public enough that we won't look suspicious, loud enough that no one can overhear. Come alone. Cole. We'll be in San Antonio tomorrow. Meeting with the Pearl District investors. All day. I scheduled it myself. There was a pause, then she added, You asked me this morning if you were crazy. You're not. But what you're about to learn will make you wish you were. She hung up. I looked at my phone, at the recording files I'd copied, at the calendar showing March 16th, one day after the anniversary my husband forgot. Cole had said I was perfect for what he needed. It was time to find out exactly what that meant. And then it was time to become something he never saw coming. So here I am, back in the present. 3 weeks since I walked out. 3 weeks since I lined up those keys on the marble counter. But between that anniversary 23 months ago and this hotel room at the Van Zandt, there were 700 days of careful preparation. Of playing the role Cole expected while building something he never imagined. Let me tell you about some of those days. The meeting with Agatha at Franklin Barbecue happened exactly as she'd planned. We stood in line for 90 minutes like normal people, talking about the weather and her daughter's college applications. Nothing that would seem suspicious to anyone watching. When we finally sat down with our brisket and ribs, she pulled out her phone. I'm going to show you something, she said. And then you're going to tell me if you want to see more, or if you want to go back to not knowing. She showed me a spreadsheet. Columns of numbers, dates, names I didn't recognize. What is this? Simon Holloway's real estate acquisitions. The ones that don't appear on any public records. She zoomed in. Notice the pattern? Every 18 months, a new LLC appears. Buys property in East Austin, usually from families who've lived there for generations. Offers them 40% below market value. That's predatory. It's legal. Technically. The families are usually facing financial hardship, medical bills, job loss, property tax increases they can't afford. Simon's people identify them, make offers, pressure them to accept quickly. Most do. She scrolled down. Then 6 months later, the same properties get rezoned. And 6 months after that, they sell to developers for 300% profit. How does Simon know which properties will get rezoned? Agatha looked at me. Because he knows the zoning board members. Personally. Some of them do business with Holloway Development. Some have mortgages through banks where Simon sits on the board. Some just owe him favors. My brisket sat untouched. This is completely legal. That's the genius of it. Nothing Simon does is technically criminal. It's just profoundly unethical. Over the next year, I became a ghost in my own marriage. Present but not really there. I attended the dinners. Smiled in the photos. Played tennis at the club with the other wives who talked about their husbands' successes like they'd earned them personally. 2 months after that barbecue meeting, Cole's father Simon threw a summer gala at the Four Seasons. Annual fundraiser for some children's charity whose board Simon chaired mostly for the tax benefits and social connections. The ballroom was full of Austin's elite. Tech executives, real estate moguls, a few politicians. The kind of people who make decisions that affect thousands of lives over cocktails and small talk. Cole worked the room like he was born to it. Which, I suppose, he was. I stood by the bar, playing my part. The beautiful wife. Smiling. Nodding. That's when Helen Davidson approached with her monthly lunch crowd. Wife of Brian Davidson, one of Cole's major investors. She hosted lunches at her River Oaks estate where she'd hold court like some kind of society queen. "Tiana, darling," she said loud enough for others to hear. "Still doing your little, what do you call it? Day trading? How adorable." The other wives tittered. I was the entertainment, the girl who thought she understood finance. But here's what Helen didn't know. That morning, my little hobby had netted me $43,000 on a short position. What none of them knew, I'd been documenting every conversation, every careless comment about their husbands' business dealings. These women treated lunch like it was harmless gossip. But they discussed insider information like it was weather reports. "Brian says the warehouse district rezoning is guaranteed," Helen announced over champagne. "He's already bought 3 properties there." I smiled. Nodded. Made a note in my phone that looked like I was texting. That afternoon, I called Morty Chen from a burner phone Agatha had given me. "Mr. Chen? I have some information about the warehouse district you might find interesting." The pattern became clear after watching for months. Simon and Cole didn't just build buildings. They built systems of leverage and control. Agatha brought me file after file. Property acquisitions that displaced families. Zoning board members who received consulting fees through Simon's shell companies. Contractors pressured to cut corners or lose contracts. Investors who were fed information that wasn't quite insider trading, just information shared between friends. The brilliance, Agatha explained one afternoon in her car, parked at a Target parking lot because we'd learned to never meet in the same place twice, is that each individual action is legal. Or legal enough that it would be hard to prove otherwise. But together? Together it's a pattern. How has no one caught them? Because no one's ever had all the pieces. Simon's been doing this for 30 years. He knows how to spread the evidence across enough entities and people that it's invisible unless you know exactly what you're looking for. But you know what to look for. I'd been looking for 12 years. Waiting for someone who could actually do something with what I'd found. She turned to me. "The question is, are you that someone?" I thought about Cole's voice on those recordings. About being called manageable. About being a strategic acquisition with an expiration date. "Yes," I said. "I'm that someone." Agatha smiled. "Good. Because in 6 months, there's going to be a city council meeting about the East Side development. And I think it's time some people learned exactly how that project got approved." I went home that night to our showcase house. Cole was in his office on a call. I made myself dinner, a simple pasta, nothing fancy, and ate alone at our 12-person dining table. My phone buzzed. "Cole, working late. Don't wait up." I didn't. Instead, I opened my laptop and started building the timeline. Every property. Every zoning change. Every displaced family. Every suspicious approval. It took me 4 months to map it all. But when I was done, I had a complete picture of the Holloway Empire. And I knew exactly where to strike. Franklin barbecue again. 2 p.m. on a Thursday. But this time, Agatha brought someone else. The woman was maybe 60, dressed in a neat pantsuit that had seen better days. She carried a worn leather portfolio and had the kind of tired eyes that come from fighting battles you know you'll probably lose. "Tiana, this is Macy Abernathy," Agatha said. She used to be engaged to Simon Holloway. 30 years ago. I stared at the woman across the picnic table. We'd moved outside despite the heat, Agatha's paranoia about being overheard had gotten more acute as my plans developed. Engaged? I repeated. Macy nodded. For 8 months. I was 26. Simon was 31, just starting to take over his father's company. We met at a fundraiser. He was charming, ambitious, said all the right things. She opened her portfolio, pulled out a photo. A younger version of herself, radiant in a white sundress, standing next to a man I recognized as a younger Simon Holloway. What happened? I asked. I started asking questions about the business. I had an MBA from Rice, worked in commercial property management. Simon initially loved that, said we'd be a power couple. But then I noticed some irregularities in how he was acquiring properties in East Austin's working-class neighborhoods. Agatha was quiet, letting Macy tell her story. There were families being displaced. Offers that were technically fair but strategically timed, right after a medical emergency or a job loss. I asked Simon about it. He said I was being emotional, that I didn't understand how business worked. The words sent ice through my veins. Different man, same script. When I kept pushing, Macy continued, things got worse. He started telling people I was unstable. That the wedding stress was making me irrational. His father, Phineas, took me aside one day and suggested I see a therapist. For my nerves. Did you? I did. Because I started doubting myself. The therapist was a friend of the Holloway family, of course. After 3 sessions, he wrote a letter diagnosing me with acute anxiety and paranoid ideation. That letter ended up in Simon's lawyer's hands during our breakup. Agatha pulled out another folder. Show her the others. Macy spread out photographs. 2 other women. Both blonde or light brown-haired. Both young, professional-looking, attractive. This is Belinda Chen. Simon dated her for 2 years in the late 90s. She was a lawyer, started noticing ethical issues in his contracts. They broke up after she threatened to file a complaint with the Texas bar. Another photo. And this is Simon's actual first wife, Elena Davidson. They were married for 4 years. She had a suspicious car accident 3 months after filing for divorce. Survived, but barely. Settled the divorce from a hospital bed and left Texas entirely. Cole learned from the best, Agatha said quietly. He's following the exact same playbook. She pulled out her own folder. Before you, Cole was engaged to a woman named Bella Lockhart. Brian Davidson's younger sister. Brian Davidson. Helen's husband. One of Cole's major investors. They were engaged for 9 months. Bella was working on her PhD in urban planning at UT. She started questioning some of Cole's development projects, specifically how they were getting community approval despite neighborhood opposition. What happened to her? Simon intervened. Told Cole that Bella was too much like her brother, too ethical, too questioning. The engagement ended. Bella finished her PhD and moved to Seattle. Works for a nonprofit now, helping communities fight predatory development. Agatha pulled up an email on her phone. I found this in Simon's archived messages from 6 years ago, right after Cole met you at that charity gala. She read aloud, this one is perfect. Economics degree so she seems smart, but event planning career so she won't threaten Cole's authority. Middle class background, father's a community college professor, mother's a librarian. They'll be grateful for the Holloway Association. I felt sick. Macy reached across the table, grabbed my hand. Listen to me. You're at 4 years of marriage. That's when Simon always moved to the next phase with his wives. That's when Cole ended things with Bella. What's the next phase? Agatha answered. Have you noticed Cole talking about having children recently? I had. For the past 3 months, he'd been making comments. About how we should start thinking about kids. About how his father wanted grandchildren. About how I was getting older at 31. Once there's a child, Macy explained, you're locked in. The prenup changes. You become more expensive to divorce but easier to control. They can threaten custody, claim you're an unfit mother, use the child as leverage. She pulled out one final photograph. A young woman, maybe 23, with auburn hair and a bright smile. She was standing in front of the UT Tower, graduation cap in hand. This is Monet Abernathy. My niece. She just graduated with a degree in architecture from UT. Last month, Simon Holloway offered her an internship at his company. My stomach dropped. She thinks it's about her talent, Macy said, voice breaking slightly. She has no idea that Simon's been tracking her since she was in high school. That he knows she's my niece. That this is some kind of sick pattern he can't break. We have to warn her, I said. I've tried. She thinks I'm bitter about an old relationship. She won't listen to me. Macy's eyes met mine. But she might listen to evidence. To proof that this is what the Holloways do. Agatha leaned forward. That's why we need to move now. Not just to save yourself, Tiana. But to stop this from happening again. To Monet. To the next woman Cole finds when you're used up. To every family they'll displace in the next development. We sat in the Austin heat, surrounded by the smell of barbecue smoke and the sound of other people's normal lives continuing around us. How many? I asked. How many women? How many families? Agatha had done the math. In 30 years, Simon's developments have displaced approximately 340 families from East Austin. Most were communities of color. Most had lived there for generations. And the women? Simon's had 3 wives and at least 7 serious relationships that ended when the women started asking questions. Cole's had 1 broken engagement and now you. Macy closed her portfolio. I've spent 30 years watching Simon Holloway build an empire on other people's pain. I lost my career fighting him. No one in commercial real estate would hire me after he spread rumors about my instability. She looked directly at me. But you have something I never had. You have Agatha's documentation. You have legal access to Cole's files as his wife. And you have time. They don't know you're asking questions yet. How do you know they don't know? Because you're still here, Agatha said simply. The moment they suspect you're a threat, they'll move to neutralize you. Quietly. Legally. But completely. I thought about the prenup amendments Cole had me sign without reading. About his casual comments about my mental state. About the therapist he'd suggested I see last month, just to talk through the stress. They were already building the narrative. I just hadn't seen it yet. What do you need from me? I asked Macy. Save my niece. Stop them from doing to her what they did to me, to Bella, to all of us. She stood, gathering her photos. And maybe, if you're very careful and very brave, burn their entire empire to the ground. After Macy left, Agatha and I sat in silence. Finally, she said, you understand what this means? If you go through with this, they'll come after you with everything they have. I know. You could just leave. Take your money and disappear. Start over somewhere else. And let them do this to Monet? To the next family in East Austin? To whoever Cole marries after me? I shook my head. No. I'm done being invisible. Agatha smiled. Good. Because I've been waiting 12 years to take these bastards down. She pulled out a thumb drive. This contains everything. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence I've collected. But we need more. We need Cole's current files, the ones he keeps in his home office. He's going to Singapore next month. Perfect. That gives us time to plan. She stood, checked her watch. 4 years and 3 months. We're right on schedule for when they usually make their move. Let's make ours first. I took the thumb drive, felt its weight in my palm. Somewhere in Austin, Monet Abernathy was probably celebrating her new internship, thrilled to be working for one of the city's most successful developers. She had no idea what she was walking into. But I did. And I was going to make sure she never had to find out. 2 weeks after meeting Macy, I drove to San Marcos. An hour south of Austin, far enough that no one from Cole's world would ever randomly run into me. The law office was above a coffee shop, the kind of place that smelled like roasted beans and had local art on the walls. Nothing like the glass towers where Cole's attorneys worked. Patricia Kim, no relation to Morty Chin, but she made sure to mention they were friends, was exactly what I needed. 48 years old, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for helping women in difficult divorces. "Agatha Karp sent you," she said. Not a question. "She said you were discreet." I'm expensive and discreet. The two tend to go together. She gestured to a chair. "Tell me what you need." I told her about the prenup amendments I'd signed without reading. About Cole's patterns of control. About the recordings and the evidence and my growing certainty that I needed legal structures in place before Cole knew I was building them. "I need a company," I said. "Something that can hold assets. Something that looks legitimate but separate from my marriage." Patricia smiled. "Like a consulting LLC?" "Exactly like that." 3 days later, I owned Finch Consulting Group, LLC. Registered in Delaware, headquartered at a business address in Round Rock that was actually just a mail forwarding service. The beauty of it was the story. I told Cole I was thinking about getting back into event planning. Just small stuff, casual consulting for friends. He barely looked up from his phone. "That's great, babe. Good for you to have a project." A project. Like I was a child building a birdhouse. What Cole didn't know, Finch Consulting had its own bank account at a credit union he'd never heard of. Every dollar I'd earned from my little hobby of day trading, now over $1.2 million, got transferred into those accounts. Slowly, carefully, in amounts small enough not to trigger alerts. Patricia had structured it perfectly. "If he ever questions it," she said, "you have receipts. Consulting fees from friends. Small event planning jobs. All legitimate income, all properly documented, all completely separate from marital assets." Cole left for Singapore on a Tuesday morning in August. 5 days of meetings with investors interested in expanding Holloway development into Asian markets. He kissed me goodbye at the door, distracted, already on his phone. "Love you, babe. Don't burn down the house while I'm gone." He laughed at his own joke. "I'll try to restrain myself," I said. His Uber was around the corner before I went upstairs to his office. I'd prepared for this. Spent weeks watching his patterns, noting when he locked files and when he didn't. I knew his passwords. He used the same 3 for everything, each one a variation on Holloway plus numbers. His filing cabinet opened with the spare key he kept in his desk drawer. Inside was everything: contracts for the current East Side development, correspondence with zoning board members, financial projections showing exactly how much profit they expected from displacing 12 families. There was a folder marked Personal, Tiana. I almost didn't open it. But I did. Inside were medical records from a psychiatrist I'd never seen. Dr. Phineas Lockhart, another Holloway family friend. The records detailed sessions I'd never attended, describing my increasing paranoia and emotional instability. They were dated from the past 6 months. Complete fabrications. But they were on official letterhead, signed by a licensed psychiatrist, and they painted a picture of a woman falling apart. This was the exit strategy. When Cole was ready to get rid of me, these records would surface. I'd be the unstable wife who needed intervention. I photographed everything. Every page, every document, every piece of Cole's careful planning. His computer was harder. He'd upgraded security recently, added a secondary authentication system. But I had time and I had his patterns. He checked his phone obsessively, even from Singapore. His iCloud password was our anniversary. Of course it was. The anniversary he'd forgotten but had committed to memory for security purposes. I logged in, accessed his authentication app, and got into his computer on the second try. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Cole had been systematically moving our joint assets into accounts I couldn't access. Over the past year, he transferred nearly $800,000 from our shared investments into offshore holdings. All perfectly legal, all with my forged signature on the authorization forms. He'd been planning this longer than I'd been planning my escape. There were emails to Dylan discussing the timeline. Need to have everything secured by September, Cole had written. Dad says that's when we make the move. 4-year mark is perfect, she's emotionally invested but not legally protected. September. Next month. I had less time than I thought. That week, while Cole was in Singapore, I moved money. Not all at once, that would trigger alerts. But carefully. Transfers that looked like normal household expenses. Each one going to Finch Consulting. Each one documented as legitimate business expenses. By the time Cole landed back in Austin on Sunday, I'd moved $127,000. But the money wasn't the real prize. The real prize was the evidence. Over 400 documents proving Cole and Simon's pattern of predatory development. Emails discussing how to pressure families into selling. Correspondence with zoning board members that walked the line of legality but crossed every ethical boundary. And most damning, the fabricated psychiatric records. Not just for me, but for Bella Davidson too. Dr. Lockhart had written similar reports about Cole's ex-fiancée, describing her paranoid delusions about Cole's business practices. It was the same playbook. Create a narrative of instability. Then produce medical evidence that she's unfit, unstable, dangerous. Cole came home exhausted from Singapore, irritable from jet lag. When he came back, his face was tight. I need to go to the office. There's a problem with the East Side financing. At 8 p.m.? Business doesn't keep office hours, Tiana. After he left, I opened my laptop. Agatha had sent an email. The subject line was just a date, September 12th. Inside was a single sentence, City Council meeting. East Side development up for final approval. We need to be ready. September 12th was 3 weeks away. 3 weeks to gather the last pieces. 3 weeks before Cole and Simon's empire either expanded or exploded. I looked at my wedding ring, still on my finger. Still playing the part. Soon, I thought. Soon I'll take it off for the last time. But not yet. Not until I had everything I needed. Not until I was ready to walk away and watch their world burn. Cole's behavior changed overnight. It was subtle at first. He came home early one Thursday, 6 p.m. instead of his usual 9 or 10. Brought flowers. Not roses from the expensive florist he usually used, but wildflowers from the farmer's market. The kind I'd mentioned loving years ago. Thought these would brighten your day, he said, kissing my cheek. Something was wrong. Cole hadn't bought me flowers personally in at least 2 years. They're beautiful, I said carefully. What's the occasion? Does there need to be an occasion? Can't a husband buy his wife flowers? There was something off in his smile. Too practiced. Of course not. Thank you. I put them in a vase, aware of his eyes tracking my movements. That night, he suggested we cook dinner together. Actually cook, not order in, not go out. He'd stopped at Central Market and bought ingredients for pasta carbonara, my favorite dish that he'd claimed to hate. I've been thinking, he said, whisking eggs with unusual focus. I've been working too much. Neglecting us. Us. He'd said, the business, or, the deal, for so long that hearing, us, felt foreign. You've been under a lot of stress, I offered. That's not an excuse. You deserve better. He looked at me, and for a second, I almost believed the regret in his eyes. I want to make things right. The next morning, Cole announced my mother was coming to visit. I called her yesterday, he said over coffee. Invited her for the weekend. I know how much you miss her. My mother. Who lived in Houston. Who Cole had always found excuses to avoid. You invited her? I did. She's arriving Friday afternoon. I'm picking her up from the airport myself. Something was very wrong. Mom arrived Friday at 3 p.m. Cole greeted her with flowers and carried her luggage like he was auditioning for Son-in-Law of the Year. Barbara, you look wonderful, he said. How was the flight? My mother, 58 and nobody's fool, looked at him with barely concealed suspicion. It was fine, Cole. This is very unexpected. In the rearview mirror, Mom's eyes met mine. What's going on? I gave a tiny shrug. Play along. That weekend, Cole performed the role of devoted husband with impressive commitment. Saturday morning, he made breakfast. Actually stood at the stove making pancakes from scratch. He took us to the Blanton Museum, where he patiently walked through exhibits. At dinner Saturday night at Uchi, he toasted Mom. To Barbara, he said, raising his wine glass, who raised an incredible daughter. I'm the luckiest man alive to have Tiana as my wife. Mom took a sip of wine, her face carefully neutral. But when Cole excused himself to take a call, she leaned across the table. What the hell is going on? She whispered. I don't know, I lied. Tiana Michelle. I raised you to be smarter than this. Men don't change overnight without a reason. Cole returned before I could respond, all smiles and charm. Sunday morning, he suggested church. Church. Cole, who'd once told me that religion was for people who needed emotional crutches. We went to Covenant Presbyterian, where Austin's elite went to be seen being faithful. Simon and his wife Moira were there. Simon greeted Mom with excessive warmth. Barbara. So wonderful to see you again. Cole's been telling me how much he values family lately. After the service, in the parking lot, Simon pulled Cole aside. Whatever Simon was saying made Cole nod seriously, his jaw tight. Mom left Sunday evening. Cole insisted on driving her to the airport again, leaving me alone. I immediately called Agatha from the burner phone. He's building a witness, she said. Your mother is supposed to see how devoted he is. So when things fall apart, she'll tell people he did everything he could. Why now? Because the city council meeting is in 2 weeks. And because. She paused. I found something in Simon's files today. An email to Dr. Lockhart dated 3 days ago. Cole's requesting an emergency evaluation. My blood went cold. An evaluation of what? Of you. He's telling Lockhart you've been behaving erratically. Paranoid. Talking about leaving him for no reason. The email says he's deeply concerned about your mental state. The performance made sense now. Devoted husband, ungrateful wife. He was trying everything, but I was becoming increasingly unstable. There's more, Agatha continued. I also found correspondence with a family attorney. Cole's been discussing involuntary commitment procedures in Texas. I sat down on our couch. How much time do I have? I don't know. But Tiana, if they can get you committed for even 72 hours, they can freeze your accounts, restrict your legal counsel, and by the time you get out, you'll have a psychiatric record that makes everything you say sound like paranoid delusions. It was the playbook. The same one they'd used on Bella, on Simon's ex-wife Elena. When Cole returned from the airport, I was making tea in the kitchen. Playing the contentedly domestic wife. Your mom's great, he said. I'm glad we did this weekend. Me too. It meant a lot to her. I handed him a cup. And to me. He pulled me close. It should have felt comforting. Instead, it felt like a trap closing. I've been thinking, he said. Maybe we should see someone. Together. A marriage counselor. There it was. A counselor? Just to make sure we're communicating well. I know I haven't been the best husband. I want to work on that. He pulled back, looked at me with perfect sincerity. There's a great therapist Dr. Lockhart recommended. Dr. Lockhart. Of course. That sounds wonderful, I said. When did you want to start? I already made an appointment. Next Thursday. Is that okay? Perfect, I smiled. I think it's exactly what we need. That night, after Cole fell asleep, I texted Agatha from the bathroom. He wants me to see Lockhart's recommended counselor next Thursday. Her response came immediately, don't go. That's when they'll make their move. I have to go. If I refuse, I look unstable. Then we move first. Tomorrow. I looked at myself in the mirror. 4 years of being Mrs. Cole Holloway. 4 years of performing and pretending and slowly planning. Tomorrow, the performance ended. I'm ready, I typed. Let's burn it down. Thursday morning. The day of the supposed therapy appointment. Cole woke me at 6 a.m. with coffee and concern. Big day, he said. I'm glad we're doing this. Me too. I took a sip. The coffee was perfect, he'd remembered exactly how I liked it, which should have been sweet except I knew it was performance. He kissed my forehead. The appointment's at 2 p.m. I'll come home early so we can drive together. Actually, I said carefully, I thought I might drive separately. I have a lunch beforehand. His jaw tightened. I'd really prefer if we went together. Cole. Please. He took my hand. This is important to me. To us. Let's do this as a team. There it was. The control wrapped in concern. Okay, I said. Together. He smiled. Kissed me again. Left for work. I waited exactly 3 minutes. Then I called Patricia Kim. It's today, I said. I need to move now. Everything's ready. The restraining order paperwork is filed but sealed. The moment you feel unsafe, call me and I'll activate it within an hour. And the other thing? The complaint to the Texas Medical Board about Dr. Lockhart's fabricated records? Ready to file. The complaint to the State Bar about Simon's attorney forging your signatures? Ready. The anonymous tip to the IRS about the offshore accounts? Sent as of 6 a.m. this morning. I exhaled slowly. Okay. Tiana? Don't go to that appointment. I won't. At 11 a.m., I was in Patricia's office, signing documents. Formal separation agreement. Restraining order. Affidavit detailing Cole's pattern of financial control. Complete inventory of all marital assets. The bank accounts, Patricia said. At noon today, your portion of all joint accounts will be automatically transferred per the separation filing. It's completely legal under Texas marital property law. How much? Based on the forensic accounting we did? $847,000. That's your 50% of liquid marital assets. I thought about Cole discovering this at the therapy appointment I wouldn't attend. What about the East Side development? That's trickier. It's held through the company. But the complaint I filed this morning with the city's ethics board might slow things down. At 11:30, I texted Cole, running late at lunch. Meet you at the appointment? His response was immediate, no problem. See you at 2. At 11:45, I was at Wells Fargo, closing our joint credit cards and opening new accounts in my name only. At 12 p.m. exactly, our joint checking balance dropped from $1.2 million to $353,000. My phone started ringing at 12:04. Cole. I didn't answer. At 1 p.m., I was in a conference room at Morty Chen's office. Around the table, Agatha. Macy Abernathy. Patricia Kim. And 3 reporters, Austin American Statesman, Texas Observer, and a local investigative podcast. Thank you for coming, I said. I want to tell you about the Holloway development empire. And I want to play you some recordings. I opened my laptop. Started with the first file I'd found 2 years ago. Cole's voice filled the room. The thing about Tiana is she's perfect for what I needed, smart enough to hold a conversation at dinners, but not so smart that she asks complicated questions. The reporters leaned forward. I played more. Simon discussing how to pressure families into selling below market value. Cole and Dylan laughing about forging my signature. 45 minutes of evidence. Years of casual cruelty, all preserved in their own voices. When it was done, the investigative podcast reporter spoke first. You understand this is explosive? I understand. And you're willing to go on record? I am. But not just me. I gestured to Agatha and Macy. They have stories too. And documentation going back 30 years. The Austin American-Statesman reporter was typing notes. When can we publish? The city council meets tomorrow night at 7 p.m. to vote on the East Side development. I'd like this to run tomorrow morning. That's barely 18 hours. Is it enough time? The three reporters looked at each other. We'll make it enough time, the podcast reporter said. At 2:15 p.m., Cole called again. Then 2:17, 2:19, 2:23. At 2:30, voicemail, Tiana, where are you? The therapist is waiting. This isn't funny. At 2:45, I'm getting worried. Please call me back. At 3 o'clock, the bank just called me. What the hell did you do? Call me. Now. I listened to each message in Patricia's office, his voice shifting from concern to confusion to anger. At 3:30, Dylan called. I let it go to voicemail. At 4 p.m., Simon Holloway called. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Tiana. His voice was cold, controlled. I don't know what Cole did to upset you, but this behavior is unacceptable. Taking money from joint accounts without discussion? It's a therapy appointment, Simon. Not a medical emergency. Cole is concerned about you. We all are. Are you? Or are you concerned about the IRS audit request filed this morning? The one asking about offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands? Silence. Then, what did you do? I stopped being invisible. You stupid girl. Do you have any idea what you've just? I hung up. My hands were shaking. I just threatened Simon Holloway. The man who'd built an empire on intimidation. Patricia handed me water. You okay? No. But I'm done being scared. At 5 p.m., I sent Cole one text, check our accounts. 3 minutes later, he called. I answered, put it on speaker. What the fuck did you do? No pretense now. Just rage. I took what's legally mine. 50% of marital assets, per Texas community property law. You didn't even discuss. Like you discussed moving $800,000 into offshore accounts? Like you discussed having Dr. Lockhart create fake psychiatric records about me? Silence. Shocked. Caught. Tiana, I don't know what you think you found, but I found everything, Cole. Every recording. Every forged signature. Every predatory land deal. Everything. You're not thinking clearly. This is exactly what Dr. Lockhart warned me about. Stop. My voice was steel. I'm not paranoid. I'm not unstable. I'm just done being your strategic acquisition. If you think you can just walk away. I already did. And tomorrow morning, the Austin American-Statesman is running a story about Holloway Development's business practices. The Texas Observer is running an investigation into your father's offshore accounts. And a podcast is releasing a series about the families your developments displaced. I could hear his breathing. Harsh. Panicked. You'll regret this, he said finally. My father has lawyers. We'll destroy you. You already tried to destroy me, Cole. You just didn't realize I was watching the whole time. I hung up. Outside Patricia's window, the sun was setting over Austin. Tomorrow, the city council would meet. Tomorrow, the news would break. But tonight, I sat in a lawyer's office with women who'd survived the same machine, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 4 years. I felt free. My phone buzzed. A text from Agatha, tomorrow, 7 p.m., City Council Chambers. Let's finish this. I texted back, I'll be there. Then I turned off my phone, left Cole's final angry voicemails unheard, and walked out into the Austin evening. Somewhere across town, Cole and Simon were probably in crisis mode, calling lawyers, trying to contain damage they didn't understand was already done. Let them scramble. I had a city council meeting to prepare for. The Austin American Statesman hit doorsteps at 5 a.m. I was already awake, sitting in my hotel room with coffee and my laptop, watching the digital version go live at 5:15. The headline was perfect: Holloway Development, Decades of Displacement and Dubious Deals. The article was devastating. 3 reporters had worked through the night, cross-referencing everything with public records, interviewing displaced families, documenting the pattern. There was a photo of Simon at a charity gala in his tuxedo. Next to it, a photo of the Ramirez family standing in front of their East Austin home 3 months before Holloway Development bought it for 60% of its post-rezoning value. My phone started buzzing at 5:47. Unknown numbers. I ignored them all. At 6:23, Cole's name appeared. Then again. Then again. At 6:45, Simon called. I answered. You've destroyed everything. His voice was barely controlled fury. 30 years of building this company, and you've destroyed it in one morning. I didn't destroy anything, I said calmly. I just showed people what was already there. The city council meeting is tonight. We have investors flying in. Contracts ready to sign. And now they'll have questions. About ethics. About community impact. You sanctimonious little, he caught himself. This isn't over. We have lawyers who will bury you. Go ahead. Discovery should be interesting. I hung up. By 8 a.m., the story had been picked up by the Houston Chronicle, Dallas Morning News, and Texas Monthly. By 9 a.m., it was on NPR. The Texas Observer's piece went live at 10 a.m., the Holloway family's offshore empire, following the money. They'd traced the accounts. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Property holdings in Singapore. Tax avoidance strategies that lived in gray areas. At 10:30, the IRS released a statement. We are aware of recent reporting regarding Holloway Development. We do not comment on ongoing investigations. The fact that they didn't deny an investigation was confirmation enough. My phone rang constantly. One call I did answer, my mother. Tiana Michelle, what the hell is happening? She sounded scared and furious. Your face is on the news. I'm okay, Mom. Are you safe? Do you need me to come there? I'm safe. I'm in a hotel. I have lawyers. I have security. That weekend he had me visit, Mom said slowly. He was building an alibi, wasn't he? Yes. Son of a bitch. Mom never cursed. What do you need? Just, don't believe anything you hear unless it comes from me directly. Baby, I raised you. I know exactly how sane you are. Let them try. At 11 a.m., Holloway Development released a statement. Recent allegations are baseless and defamatory. These claims come from a disgruntled family member experiencing personal difficulties. We are pursuing all legal remedies. Personal difficulties. The narrative they'd been building. But at 11:30, the podcast dropped their first episode, The Women Who Knew, A Pattern of Silencing. It featured Macy telling her story. Bella Davidson speaking publicly for the first time. Elena Davidson calling in about that accident that nearly killed her. And Agatha. 12 years of observations, delivered in her calm voice. Naming names. Citing dates. Providing documentation. By noon, #Holloway Development was trending. At 1 p.m., the first investor pulled out. A Singapore-based firm, in light of recent revelations, we are suspending all negotiations pending investigation. By 2 p.m., 3 more had followed. At 3 p.m., Dillon released his own statement. I am cooperating fully with all regulatory investigations and have retained separate legal counsel. He was abandoning ship. At 4 p.m., I received a text from an unknown number. This is Monet Abernathy. My aunt told me everything. Thank you. I quit the Holloway internship this morning. Relief flooded through me. I responded, I'm sorry you were targeted. But I'm glad you're safe. Her reply, I'll be at City Council tonight. So will about 40 other people. We're going to make sure they hear us. At 5 p.m., Patricia called. The restraining order has been activated. Cole came to your hotel this morning. Security turned him away, but he was aggressive enough that they called police. Was he arrested? No. But it's on record. At 6 p.m., I got dressed. Not designer clothes. Jeans. A simple blouse. My grandmother's earrings. I looked in the mirror and saw Tiana Finch. At 6:30, I met Agatha in the parking lot of Austin City Hall. You ready? She asked. I've been ready for 2 years. The council chambers were packed. Every seat filled, people standing in back, reporters with cameras along the walls. I saw Morty Chin sitting with families displaced by Holloway developments. I saw Macy with Monet. I saw zoning board members looking uncomfortable. And in the front row, Simon and Cole Holloway. Simon projecting confidence. Cole looking haggard, his eyes scanning until they landed on me. The hatred in his expression was pure. Good, I thought. No more performance. The city council president called the meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. We're here to vote on final approval for the Holloway Development East Side project. However, given recent media attention, we'll hear extended public comment first. The first speaker was Maria Ramirez. My grandmother bought that house in 1967, she said. We lived there for 3 generations. Holloway Development told us we had to sell because of infrastructure upgrades. They offered us $240,000. After we sold, they got it rezoned and sold it for $890,000. The next speaker was James Chen. Another displaced homeowner. Then another. Then another. 12 families total. 12 stories of pressure and manipulation. Then Morty Chen approached the microphone. I'm a commercial developer. I compete with Holloway Development. So you might think I have ulterior motives. He pulled out a folder. But I'm presenting documentation of zoning board decisions that benefited Holloway projects. I'm not alleging anything illegal. I'm just asking, doesn't this pattern deserve investigation? Then Macy spoke. About Simon's pattern with women. Then Agatha. 12 years of documentation, presented with devastating precision. The council members looked increasingly uncomfortable. Finally, the president said, Does anyone from Holloway Development wish to respond? Simon stood. Walked to the microphone with the confidence of a man who'd bought his way out of every problem for 30 years. These allegations are false, inflammatory, and clearly coordinated. We have operated in full compliance with all regulations. Then you won't mind an independent ethics investigation? Morty called out. The room erupted. Shouts of agreement. Simon's facade cracked. Just slightly. The city council deliberated for 20 minutes. Then the president spoke. In light of serious allegations raised tonight, we are tabling the East Side development approval pending an independent investigation into Holloway Development's business practices. Not a rejection. But not an approval. The development was in limbo. Simon's face went white. Cole looked like he might be sick. Agatha's hand found mine. She squeezed once. Outside, reporters swarmed. I'd prepared a statement with Patricia. I'm grateful the city council is taking these concerns seriously. This was never about revenge. It was about making sure other families, other women, don't experience what so many already have. Mrs. Holloway, a reporter started. It's Ms. Finch, I corrected. I'm reclaiming my name. A camera flashed. That moment would be the photo that ran in every paper the next day. Behind me, through the glass doors, Cole pushed through the crowd, trying to reach me. Security stopped him. The restraining order was in effect. He stood there, separated by glass and guards and consequences, and screamed something I couldn't hear. I turned away. I had nothing left to say to him. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday. Not the ones Cole filed. He tried that the day after the city council meeting, claiming irreconcilable differences. His lawyers were trying to paint him as the reasonable party. These were mine. Filed by Patricia Kim, served by a process server who found Cole at his office at 9 a.m. Patricia called me 30 minutes later. He took it badly, I hear. Define badly. Threw the papers at the process server. Started yelling about how you'd regret this. Security had to escort the server out. I was sitting in a coffee shop in South Austin, reviewing documents for something I'd been building for the past 3 weeks. When's the court date? I asked. Judge wants to see both parties in 2 weeks. But Tiana, Cole's lawyer, filed a motion challenging the asset division. They're claiming you hid marital assets. Let them claim it. Everything I moved was legally mine, and we have documentation for every dollar. I know. But it's going to get ugly. It's already ugly. At least now it's honestly ugly. 2 weeks later, I walked into Travis County Family Court. Cole was already there with his attorney, James Kellerman, who charged $850 an hour and had a reputation for destroying opposing parties. Cole looked different. Thinner. Dark circles under his eyes. The golden boy polish worn away. He stared at me as I walked in. I didn't look away. Judge Catherine Reeves was 63, had been on the bench for 20 years, and had a reputation for not tolerating bullshit from wealthy men. Mr. Kellerman, she said, I've reviewed your motion challenging the asset division. You claim Ms. Finch hid marital assets and engaged in financial manipulation. That's correct, Your Honor. Ms. Finch systematically moved over $1.2 million from joint accounts into a separate business entity. Judge Reeves turned to Patricia. Ms. Kim? Patricia stood. Your Honor, Ms. Finch is sole proprietor of Finch Consulting Group, LLC, a legitimate business she established 2 years ago. Every dollar deposited came from her personal consulting income and investment activities. We have complete documentation. Mr. Kellerman, does your client dispute that Ms. Finch had her own income? Cole's lawyer shifted. He believes that income should be considered marital property. Did Mr. Holloway contribute to that income in any way? No, but... Then it's separate property under Texas law. Judge Reeves looked at Cole directly. Mr. Holloway, did you know your wife had consulting income? Cole stood. I knew she did some small projects, but I had no idea she was hiding. Earning money and hiding money are not the same thing, the judge interrupted. Did she lie when you asked about her income? I never asked. So you assumed she had no income because you didn't bother to ask? Kellerman tried to intervene. Your Honor, my client was focused on his career. Counsel, I'm going to stop you there. Judge Reeves pulled out a document. I've also reviewed some recordings submitted as evidence. Would you like me to play them in open court, or would your client prefer to withdraw his motion? Cole's face went pale. He knew which recordings she meant. Kellerman leaned over to whisper to Cole. A heated conversation. Finally, Kellerman stood. We withdraw the motion, Your Honor. Judge Reeves wasn't done. Before we proceed, I have concerns about prenuptial amendments dated from last year that Ms. Finch allegedly signed. She held up the papers with my forged signature. Miss Finch, is this your signature? No, Your Honor. Mr. Holloway, can you explain how your wife's signature appears on legal documents she claims never to have signed? Cole looked at Kellerman, panicked. There must have been some confusion. Perhaps she forgot. Mr. Holloway, I don't appreciate being lied to in my courtroom. Judge Reeves's voice was ice. I'm referring this matter to the State Bar for investigation. In the meantime, these amendments are void. She turned to Patricia. Ms. Kim, what are your client's requests? Dissolution of marriage. Ms. Finch retains all separate property, including Finch Consulting Group. Joint property divided per the original prenuptial agreement, 50-50 split. Ms. Finch requests sale of the marital home with proceeds divided equally. So ordered. Mr. Holloway will pay all court costs and attorney fees. Judge Reeves signed the order. Divorce granted. Marriage is dissolved. Mr. Holloway, you have 30 days to vacate the marital home. Ms. Finch, you're free to go. I walked out of that courtroom into Austin sunshine. How do you feel? Patricia asked. Free, I said. My phone buzzed. A text from Agatha, heard you won. Coffee tomorrow? I have a proposition. The next morning, we met at a coffee shop on South Congress. Agatha looked different out of her work clothes, younger somehow. I quit, she said. Gave Simon my notice yesterday. 2 weeks and I'm done. Agatha. I'm 64. I've spent 12 years watching people get hurt. I'm done watching. She pulled out a folder. I've been talking to Macy and some of the families from the city council meeting. We want to start something. A nonprofit that helps people fight predatory development. That's amazing. We want you to run it. I stared at her. What? You have the financial knowledge. The legal connections. The story that people will listen to. You were inside the machine and you got out. I don't know anything about running a nonprofit. You didn't know anything about taking down a real estate empire either, Macy said, appearing at our table. You figured that out. 3 months later, I stood in a small office space on East 6th Street. It used to be a print shop. Now it was headquarters for the Finch Foundation, named not after me, but after all the small, resilient things that survive when bigger predators think they've won. Our mission, protecting communities and individuals from predatory business practices through education, documentation, and legal advocacy. Agatha ran operations. Macy handled community outreach. Morty Chen sat on our board, contributing funding and expertise. Our first client walked in on a Thursday afternoon. Her name was Sophie, 29, and her landlord was using predatory tactics to force her out so he could renovate and triple the rent. I heard about you from the podcast, she said. About what you did to the Holloways. I don't have money for lawyers, but I documented everything. Agatha smiled. Documentation is exactly what we need. By the end of our first quarter, we'd helped 17 people. Stopped 4 predatory evictions. Connected 12 families with pro bono legal services. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't revenge. It was just work, good, hard, necessary work. My mother came to visit in December. She stayed in my new apartment, a 2-bedroom in South Austin with terrible water pressure but huge windows and a backyard where I'd started a garden. It's small, she said. It's mine, I replied. She hugged me then. I'm so proud of you. Not for leaving him. But for building this. For using what happened to help other people. We made dinner together that night. Pasta, badly burned garlic bread, a salad that was mostly lettuce. It was perfect. Have you heard from Cole? She asked carefully. His lawyers contact Patricia sometimes. The house sold last month. I got my half, $1.6 million. Put most of it into the foundation's endowment. And Cole? Last I heard, he's working for a development firm in Dallas. Smaller operation. Simon's company is facing multiple investigations. It'll take years, but the empire is done. Mom was quiet. Do you ever regret it? Walking away from that life? I thought about the penthouse with the marble counters. The designer clothes. The charity galas where I smiled and said nothing. Not for a second. Spring hit Austin hard that year. I was at the foundation office early, reviewing a case file, when Agatha walked in with coffee and the morning paper. "You're on the front page again," she said, sliding the Austin Chronicle across my desk. The headline, "Finch Foundation Celebrates 6 Months, Helps 89 Families Fight Displacement." There was a photo of our office, modest, cramped, real. And a quote from me, "Everyone deserves to know their rights and have someone in their corner who isn't intimidated by wealth or power." 89 families, I said. We're getting referrals from legal aid organizations across Texas. Macy's been fielding calls from Houston, San Antonio, even El Paso. Agatha settled into her chair. We're going to need more space. Can we afford it? With the grant we just got? Yes. Barely. But yes. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Miss Finch? This is Monet Abernathy. I just got accepted to grad school for urban planning at MIT. Wanted to thank you. I'm going to learn how to build cities the right way." I showed Agatha. She smiled. "One saved," she said quietly. "One of many," I replied. That afternoon, I had to return to the house on Glenwood for a final walkthrough. Title issues that needed my signature. The realtor let me in. "Just need your signature on a few documents." But I walked through the rooms slowly. The kitchen where I'd lined up those keys. The bedroom where I'd pretended to sleep. Cole's office where I'd found the recordings. It was just a house. Expensive, beautiful, hollow. I signed the papers in the kitchen, on that marble counter where this had all started. "All set," the realtor said. "The new family moves in next week. Tech couple from California with 2 kids. I hoped they'd be happy here. I hoped they'd fill it with actual life." That evening, the foundation hosted a community meeting at the library. Know your rights, tenant protections. 43 people showed up. We'd prepared for maybe 15. They sat in folding chairs, clutching rental agreements and eviction notices. Young families. Elderly couples. Students. Artists. The people who made Austin weird and real, all being slowly pushed out. Macy led the presentation with Morty, explaining what landlords could and couldn't do. Agatha handed out resource packets. I answered questions. "What if we can't afford a lawyer?" someone asked. "That's why we're here," I said. "We work with pro bono attorneys. We document patterns of abuse. We make sure you're not fighting alone." An older woman in the back raised her hand. "I heard about what you did to the Holloways." The room went quiet. "I didn't stop them alone," I said. "It took dozens of people. Families willing to tell their stories. Journalists willing to investigate. People like Agatha who documented everything for years. It took all of us." "But you started it," the woman insisted. I thought about standing in Cole's kitchen, keys on the counter, knowing that walking out meant war. I fought back because I had resources, I said finally. Education, some money, connections. Most people don't have those things. That's why this foundation exists, so fighting back isn't something only privileged people can do. After the meeting, people lingered. Sharing stories, exchanging numbers, building connections. Agatha and I were the last to leave. "You did good tonight," she said. "We did good," I corrected. She smiled. 12 years I worked for the Holloways. 12 years I watched them hurt people. Some days I wondered if it would ever end. It ended. "No," she said. "It transformed. Simon and Cole are gone, but there are 100 other developers doing the same things. 1,000 other powerful men who think women are decorative and workers are invisible. So what do? We keep fighting. One case at a time. One family at a time. We document, we expose, we help people find their power. She unlocked her car. And we train the next generation to do it better. I drove home through East Austin, past the neighborhoods the Holloways had targeted. Some of the families we'd helped were still there. Others had lost their homes despite our efforts. You couldn't save everyone. That was the hard truth. But you could save some. And those people could save others. And slowly, maybe, the balance shifted. My apartment was dark when I got home. I turned on the lights, fed my cat, a tabby named Justice that someone had left outside the foundation office 3 months ago. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. The state bar finished their investigation. Simon's attorney has been disbarred for the forged signatures. Another brick crumbling. I made tea and sat at my small kitchen table, not marble, just IKEA, and opened my laptop. An email from a woman in Houston whose landlord was using the same tactics the Holloways had used. I don't know if you can help, she wrote, but I don't know who else to ask. I replied, tell me your story. We'll see what we can do. Because that's what we did now. We listened to stories that powerful people wanted silenced. We documented what they wanted hidden. We helped people fight battles they thought they'd have to fight alone. 6 months became a year. The foundation grew. We hired 2 more staff. Moved to a bigger office. Helped 217 families in our first 12 months. I never remarried. Never wanted to. Built a life that was mine alone, work that mattered, friendships that were real, a tiny garden where I grew tomatoes that tasted like accomplishment. Sometimes I thought about Cole. Wondered if he'd learned anything. Probably not. Men like that rarely changed. But I had changed. Transformed from the woman who thought love meant tolerating contempt, who believed success meant marble counters, who'd let herself become small because someone told her that's what wives were supposed to be. Now I was myself. Tiana Finch. Not anybody's wife, not anybody's acquisition. Just myself. Imperfect, angry sometimes, tired often, but free. And in the end, that was the empire I'd built. Not money or property or power over others. Just the radical act of being myself without permission. Cole had said I couldn't survive without him. He was wrong. I didn't just survive. I thrived. I grew. I helped others do the same. And that was the best revenge of all, not destroying him, but proving that my worth had never been tied to his valuation. I was never the trophy in his case. I was always the woman who could shatter glass. I just had to remember how to hold the hammer. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.